This is Jonathan Aguilar with Pro Boxing Fans here in Brighton with Kalle Sauerland. It's the first press conference for Harlem Eubank, Tyrone McKenna, March 7th. Kalle, talk to us about this fight. The press conference got pretty interesting up there. What's your thoughts and expectations for March 7th?
Yeah, look, I think it's one of those fights that got an instant reaction to it online. Fantastic reaction. It's the trade you call it a banger, but it's got a throwback feel to it. It's, you know it's going to be a war. You know it's going to be seen by a lot of people. 2 million people on average tune into Harlem Eubank fights on Channel 5. So very, very exciting. Brighton was the scene of a great show we done down here about a year ago, and Eubank in Brighton is always special. Add to that, I think there's 10 or 11 fights on the card. We've got Mick Conlon, obviously a big new signing for us. Very exciting stage of his career, and stacked card. Dan Toward, amazing last year. Great to see him coming through. Tom Welland, got the Brighton Bull, big heavyweight, Tommy Welsh. It's always important to have not only local fighters, but a real good heavyweight fight with him. We're going to have on heavyweights. Matty Harris, working under Peter Fury, also returning, great prospect. Cody Smith returning, great prospect as well. So it's going to be a long night of boxing.
Let's start with I wouldn't call it a rant, but you sort of took over the press conference towards the end. Let's call it a rant. Let's call it a rant. At sort of the end of the press conference, you were trying to make the point, I guess, about comparing Harlem to Adam Azim. Was that just kind of the frustrations of that fight not going through last year that sort of brought out that?
Let me rephrase that. Right, I wasn't comparing Harlem and Adam. I'm just saying that they were put in the ring last year for a face-off. Not on my watch. They were putting I was off that night, right? So they ended up in a ring for a face-off. So that fight was clearly talked about. It was advertised as done, but it wasn't. Which I did tell everyone at the time. So last year was a real horrible year for Harlem. It cost him a year. That's not blaming Adam Azim. In fact, I think Adam Azim is a fantastic fighter. He seems like a great character, and will be a real star in this sport. I was just pointing out that there was talk about the levels. Now McKenna is a very, very live fight. I said on Saturday he's fighting. And I know the name of the opponent. I was having a little tease up there. But was not at the opponent's expense. Lipinets, very, very nice fight and everything. But the word on the street is he's going straight into the Ben Eubank card. So if that's the case, what's the fight on Saturday? I don't quite understand it. It's what is it? Like a couple of months later. So it doesn't really add up on terms of how that's being guided. But again, we were made a comparison of in terms of levels and things like that. The reason Harlem took a comeback fight last year was because the time that he was messed about in the negotiations around the Adam Azim fight. There's nothing at all against Adam Azim. But that's just a statement. You just look at his record. He was super active, suddenly no action. So, yeah, he had to take a back to business fight, as we called it, and we build it back to business. So it wasn't like we were trying to sell it as he's fighting King Kong. And now we're really back to business in a really live fight, March 7th, live on Channel 5.
Moving on to sort of the main event itself, there was talk from, I believe, Jamie Conlon about previous Brighton against Irish clashes going back to Eubank and Collins. Is that the type of fight you want?
Absolutely. I said throwback, but I'm not going to try and test myself with the Conlons on boxing history because I will lose. It would be a first round knockout. So yeah, the first one I thought was Collins as well, but yeah, you know what you're getting when you get a Belfast fighter normally. I mean, the last fight I did in the main event with a Belfast fighter was Poddy McCrory. He went out and absolutely took the head off my German fighter Leon Bunn for IBO world title about a year and a half ago. So I've certainly had my experience with Northern Irish fighters. Yeah, so listen, we know exactly what it's about. You see the reaction online, the hardcore, they're brutal, and they reacted well to this. So do I need to say more? I don't really need to sell it to the hardcore. It's now about taking it to a national and global audience.
And then obviously having that IBF, I believe, intercontinental title, like you said, will give them a top 10 ranking. Speaking to Tyrone over there, he said, look, I fought Crocker, but give me the winner of Crocker Donovan, and he thinks maybe Boots Ennis will move up. So this fight, do you see it as sort of an eliminator in some senses for that IBF title?
Yeah, it's certainly going to propel the winner. And by the way, I'm not. We made this fight as a live fight, so I'm not writing off Tyrone McKenna. I know he's a live opponent, and his CV is better than Harlem's. That's why we're trying to take his scalp, because it is better than Harlem's. So he knows his game, and he's probably been in there with fighters that are just as tough as the names you just mentioned. He's been in there with Regis Progress, Cattrall. Look at his last fight. Tyrone McKenna is an absolute beast. So it's going to be a tough night's work for Harlem. But it's boxing, it's sport. That's what you need to go through.
It's March 7th, live on Channel 5. Kalle, just a couple of other things. Darren Till tweeted that Jake Paul. He said big news coming. I think Anfield #Jake Paul. Is there any truth to that?
You'd have to ask Darren. No, I mean, I haven't heard of it, and last time I checked, we've got him under contract. But no. It's a great fight. Big numbers. Does big numbers, that fight. That's all I can really say. I haven't had any conversations on it now.
I didn't actually listen to it, but I saw someone tweet that Mams Taylor said something about like a cross-promotional sort of Misfits against MVP. Is that something you'd be interested in? Kind of like as we see like these 5v5s, would you be interested in doing maybe like a Misfits versus MVP?
No, I mean, it's a scene, the crossover boxing scene is not the traditional boxing scene, but it's got lots of concepts that I think you can use both ways. One of them, yeah, of course. I mean, if one day the KSI versus Jake Paul fight does eventually come off, it does bigger numbers than any other fight in the world, whether traditional or crossover boxing. And I think to make that card, you'd have to do something similar to that. So yeah, why not?
Obviously mentioning KSI, haven't seen you since obviously the fallout from the Wayne Bridge fight that isn't happening. Anything you want to sort of say on that? And looking back now, how would you reflect on what happened?
No, look, I mean, you sign up for Misfits, and it's crossover boxing. Call it social media boxing. Call it whatever you want to call it. It's a volatile space, as we've seen. So totally respect Wayne's decision, but at the same time, I guess the advice he was maybe given of what he was signing up for, it wasn't. It wasn't. How do I put this? It wasn't white collar boxing in front of 500 fans. It was going to be a global pay-per-view event with 20,000 fans in the venue. So, unfortunately, this space has a lot of coverage. And that's what it does. But totally respect his decision. And we've got a short list now of 2-3 names that we're whittling down, and I can confirm that 1 or 2 contracts have gone overnight, and hopefully we'll have an announcement later this week.
Just on Tommy Fury, you know, it seems like you're the guy that sort of mediates that kind of thing when it comes to Tommy Fury fight. Is there any update with him?
We had a good meeting with Tommy and John last week, working on a few ideas for this year. We've got to sort some stuff out, and hopefully we'll have news soon.
What do you make of when Darren Till, he came out and said, look, Tommy is only really in boxing because his dad's forcing him to be? What sort of, you know, mentality do you see from Tommy, especially given sort of the year he had where he beat arguably, well, the two biggest names in this scene?
I'll do a lot for you, my friend, but I am not getting in the middle of a Tommy and Darren argument. Forget it. Forget it. Next question.
Last week, Eubank Benn is signed April 26th. What's your thoughts on the fight and this rehydration clause, which is causing some debate?
I think the fight's more exciting than when we first got it done. I think it's one of those fights. I don't think it's going to go long, but I think it's going to be super exciting while it lasts. I don't get involved in these rehydration clauses. I think it's a very personal thing for the fighter, maybe his nutritionist and stuff. Don't know what they've signed up to. Interesting to see what the penalties would be if he misses it, because let's face it, if he misses it, the fight's not going to go off, is it? They're not going to call the fight off because he comes in at 171 or something, is it? So what's the penalty? That would be quite interesting to see. But yeah, no, I don't make too much of that. I don't think that'd be too much of an issue. But at the same time, we all know the body clock changes over time. 2 years ago, that would not have been an issue. But I don't know what it's like for Chris Eubank Jr. now. That will have changed.
How do you think the fight's going to play out?
I think Eubank wins.
Okay, Kalle, appreciate your time. Obviously March 7th here in Brighton. Look forward to that, and announcing Michael Conlon tomorrow. See you later.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.